JJK chapter 261 is here, and I'm not gonna lie, guys, this chapter is probably the third most anticipated chapter in JJK that I've anticipated so far. I can't remember feeling this excited for a chapter since the Gojo and Sukuna fight began. So the chapter begins and Yuji's hand is in Sukuna's chest. So if you recall, he hit a black flash at the end of the last chapter, and he decided that he wants to crush Sukuna's heart. As he's doing that, then goes to cast his domain expansion, just like we saw at the end of the last chapter. And that's when Gojo, or what appears to look like Gojo, appears, and Sukuna is obviously standing there in disbelief and wonders if it's actually him. But he pushes that thought away, saying that that's impossible, and I kid you not, we have a half-page spread revealing that Gojo has stitches all across his forehead. So Sukuna, realizing who this truly is, punches Yuji away and turns around towards Gojo and says, you know what, I'll put my hands up. I apologize for underestimating you. I didn't realize you were capable of going that far. We then have a flashback where Yuta decided to have Rika devour Kenjaku's body in order to copy his curse technique, which allowed Yuta to change bodies this way. Maki objected to this plan, but Hikari says he has one condition: they're only going to do that if everything else has gone south and everyone else has been wiped out. This is a plan to enact if all other options are gone. We then have a quick conversation between Kusakabe and Shoko, where Kusakabe says, can't we just copy the Limitless from Gojo's body instead? And Shoko says you can't use Limitless without the 6 eyes. And Kusakabe says, well, can we just copy the 6 eyes then? And Shoko says the 6 eyes are a part of his physical body, not a curse technique, so you can't just copy it. So Maki then chimes in and asks Yuta if he can only copy a curse technique for 5 minutes. If 5 minutes goes past, obviously if it goes past 5 minutes, what happens after he takes over Gojo's body? And Yuta says, I don't know. Next, Mei chimes in with the pros and cons of the curse technique. So there are different consequences that could potentially happen to Yuta after 5 minutes of using this curse technique on Gojo's body. So the first is if Kenjaku's curse technique is of the constant or intermittent operation type, the physical body or the soul can't be maintained and he'll pass away. 2, if the curse technique operates intermittently, he won't immediately pass away, but he'll eventually pass away. And 3rd, if the curse technique is a single use, one-time technique, he can use Limitless even past 5 minutes. So basically what this is saying is, depending on how Kenjaku's curse technique works is going to determine how Yuta's copy works with it, right? So because if Kenjaku just swaps with somebody and the curse technique is only used for like the initial swap, then Yuta is going to be fine. But if Kenjaku's curse technique needs a constant kind of upkeep to perform the swap, then Yuta is going to be screwed after the 5 minutes. Anyway, Mei finally says that after the switching of the bodies is completed, it's also possible that Yuta's curse technique will be discarded and he'll just live in Gojo's body from now on. Meaning Yuta will completely lose his copy curse technique and he'll basically just have Limitless and the 6 eyes. So they don't know which of these scenarios is going to be. Then he says he knows this is a last resort. So first he's going to try and fight Sukuna with all he has and with his own domain. If that's not successful, then he will accept Gojo's body. Kusakabe says, it's a good plan, it's just not very humane. And Yuta claps back and says, what do you mean humane? We're about to fight history's strongest sorcerer. We can just win by throwing away our humanity. We shouldn't even be arguing about this. We should just do it. Yuta asks if everyone's afraid of becoming some sort of monster to fight Sukuna, and Maki rebukes him, saying, we're all just worried about you. Yuta then continues and starts yelling at everybody, saying, well, what about Gojo then? Is he not important? Haven't we been pushing the burden of becoming a monster onto him alone? If no one intends to, then I will. The scene then transitions and we have Yuta tell Gojo that he's going to take his body if he falls in battle. And Gojo says he's chill with that because he has no intention of losing and he doesn't care what happens to his body. Now hold that thought for just a second, because I'm going to come back to this. This is where the theories begin. For the rest of the chapter, it's basically just Shoko putting back Gojo's body together, and in the end, we get a big double panel showing Gojo and Sukuna opening their domain expansions with Yuta in Gojo's body, explaining that actually Gojo already showed us how to deal with Sukuna's open domain from beforehand. Now going back to the first theory I have, what if we're still in the Gojo x Sukuna fight? This theory I didn't originally think of, it wasn't my idea, but I got it here from this tweet. What if the events we've seen since chapter 229 have been Sukuna's delusions manifested since taking on the unlimited void? The delusions are just now wearing off, and that's why Gojo is appearing, because he never left. To me, this is extremely unlikely, and for a number of reasons. The first being that it would be a complete waste of time to show us all of Yuji's progression, and mind you, everyone else's, just to eventually take it back in the future and say it wasn't real. Gege would downright piss me and a lot of the fan base off. I keep making this half serious, half jokey statement that Yuta is the main character of the series because look at the accomplishments he's had throughout the series in comparison to Yuji. For one, he's actually killed Yuji before. Two, he took out Kenjaku and is now using his curse technique, whereas so far, I'd say Yuji's best feat is using RCT. The only angle I might be able to see reason in is that Unlimited Void sends the user into a state of paralysis by essentially filling their mind with limitless information, so what if during that time you could experience hallucinations? The next theory, or really topic I wanted to talk about and deduce, is the hypothetical consequences or repercussions of Kenjaku's curse technique to possess Gojo. So to remind you, Meimei's analysis of Yuta Okotsu copying Kenjaku's curse technique highlights the potential consequences and outcomes of using such a powerful ability. So here's a breakdown of the scenarios. 1. If Kenjaku's curse technique requires constant or intermittent activation to function, Yuta's body or soul might not be able to sustain the technique's demands. This could result in Yuta's immediate death due to the strain on his physical or spiritual form. 2. If the curse technique operates intermittently but not continuously, Yuta might not die immediately, but the prolonged strain would eventually be fatal. So this basically means this would allow Yuta to survive for a time but ultimately lead to his death due to the inherent risks and energy consumption. Or 3. If the curse technique is a one-time use technique, Yuta could potentially use it past the 5-minute limit imposed by his copying ability. This would enable him to maintain control and use techniques like Limitless even beyond the 5-minute window, offering a temporary but significant boost in power. After successfully switching bodies, it's possible that Yuta's copied curse technique would be discarded. Yuta would permanently live in Gojo's body if he had completed the switch, losing his original curse technique but gaining the ability and perhaps the form of Gojo. But I don't think it stops there. I think there are potentially more scenarios outside of what Meimei suggested, like what if in a 4th scenario Yuta successfully completes the swap and keeps his curse techniques like Kenjaku does with everybody he swapped between, but maybe the backlash is that this turns him into a curse. And I'll explain. Kenjaku and Sukuna are both from the Heian era, and as we know at that time, Sukuna accepted Kenjaku's offer to participate in the culling game. As part of the contract, Kenjaku divided Sukuna's soul into his 20 fingers and turned them into cursed objects, allowing Sukuna to live on after his death, so we know they're in league with each other. On top of that, in chapter 250, Sukuna's right hand, Uraume, is currently fighting Hakari and states that what makes humanity weak is their fear of discarding their humanity for destruction, and I believe this was the last thing he said, and we haven't seen him since. My guess is similar to what Kashimo did. He may have also had a cursed spirit form. He may also have a cursed spirit form. Kenjaku is also extremely informed about the knowings of the special grade curses and shares a desire to create a world dominated by cursed energy and cursed spirits. To me, this is evidence enough to suggest that the form of that cursed technique is a cursed spirit, because if you look at it, It's definitely not human. And right before Yuta makes the transition to Gojo's body, he makes this grandiose speech about how discarding your humanity to defeat Sukuna is a no-brainer, right? So no pun intended. I know it may seem like a reach, but the truth is, we just don't know enough about Kenjaku's curse technique to deny this allegation. But let me know what your thoughts are on this. Do you have any other scenarios you think could possibly happen as a consequence of Yuta using this curse technique? Let me know.